I'm gonna make this thing bleed.
The Meg is one of the dumbest movies I've seen all year, which is impressive considering I've also seen Super Troopers 2, Pacific Rim 2, Rampage, and Skyscraper. Unlike Skyscraper, The Meg isn't that fun type of dumb, though. It sure is trying to be, but oh boy does it not stick the landing. No, instead this is the incompetent type of dumb. The Meg is way too long at almost 2 hours, which might have been manageable, except that this movie selling itself as complete cheese ends up being mostly cringe instead. The dialogue is atrocious, with the characters all spouting off one-liners constantly that are meant to be funny, but just aren't.
Did you guys ever watch Shark Week?
Nearly every time it happens, there's what seems like a 1-second pause before dialogue continues, left in for people to laugh during, except that almost nobody in my theater was laughing, so it just felt awkward and forced.
We're at the Rocky Mountains anyway.
Philadelphia.
I did laugh a few times at some of the action bits, but even those were too few and far between to hold my interest. What you get in between the action is stock, boring characters exchanging this cringy dialogue, and while the acting is mostly fine, I guess, it's kind of hard to tell through all of the terrible. The only actor in The Meg who seems to recognize what type of film they're in is Rainn Wilson as the clueless billionaire funding the project, but he still can't save the movie.
He's kidding, right?
Even Jason Statham seems to be kind of asleep at the wheel here, and he's usually a perfect fit for this type of over-the-top gimmicky action movie.
He looks heroic, but he's kind of got a negative attitude.
The premise of the film is that there's this team of deep-sea marine biologists or some other type of researcher that accidentally lure a megalodon, a prehistoric species of shark the size of a school bus, up to the surface where it immediately begins murdering every single living thing it encounters. This seems like a winning formula for a trashy B-movie, but there just really isn't anything to this sloppy screenplay. So many things about it are off. Events move from one bullet point to the next between cuts with almost no continuity to tie it all together, so it's kind of hard to tell whether the movie is meant to take place over like a day and a half or a couple of weeks. A lot of decisions made with the characters are also random and confusing from a screenplay perspective. Let me give you an example. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with a principle of writing known as Chekhov's gun, which states that if somebody puts a loaded gun on stage in Act 1, that gun had better be fired at some point in Act 3 or it becomes a wasted plot element. Something that exists within the story but that has no actual reason to be there to serve that story. With this in mind, I'd like to coin a new term for use in this review, if I may. Chekhov's ex-wife.
I call it the ex-wife.
Now I'm going to have to spoil some plot details from The Meg to explain Chekhov's ex-wife, so spoilers from here on if you care, which you shouldn't. Okay, so at the beginning of the movie, Jason Statham is called in to rescue 3 divers in a submarine who are stuck beneath the lowest point on Earth, Marianas Trench. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, just roll with it. As it happens, one of the divers turns out to be his ex-wife, and you'd think the setup here is going to be that Statham's character and his ex-wife are going to spend a lot of the movie getting back on good terms with one another in some way, either by rekindling their relationship over the threat of giant shark attacks, or by coming to respect each other as friends or colleagues or, you know, whatever, right?
Wrong.
Instead, during the rescue, she and Jason Statham exchange a line or two of snarky dialogue and then barely interact for the remainder of the film. More to the point, the ex-wife doesn't actually do anything after being rescued, since she has a serious injury and spends the majority of the movie off-camera in sickbay. Jason Statham spends most of his screen time playing off against a different character played by Chinese superstar Bingbing. The two of them start off not seeing eye to eye, but then gradually come to understand and respect one another, and even start to maybe develop a relationship towards the end of the movie, and doesn't this seem a bit weird to anyone else from a screenplay perspective? The ex-wife character and Lee's character should have been consolidated, either by removing the ex-wife entirely, or by making Lee's character the ex-wife, or by having the actress playing the ex-wife play Statham's old friend or his sister or something, since her needing to be rescued is the only reason he takes the job in the first place. The only other conversation the two have in the film after the rescue is during the second act, where they talk briefly in sickbay and she tells him it's cool with her if he starts dating other people. And look, it's not like I was just sitting there through the whole movie obsessing over why they they underwrote the protagonist's ex-wife. This was just one little issue I noticed with the movie's screenplay. There were a bunch of others I could probably deconstruct in a similar way, but needless to say, I just didn't like it. Oh, and there's also a giant shark, I guess, which is completely misrepresented in all of these posters, by the way. They make it look like it's the size of a freaking kaiju from the Godzillaverse or something here, while this is how big it actually is in the movie. This was a film absolutely begging to be a briskly paced R-rated B-movie with tons of over-the-top shark attacks and comically cheesy death scenes. What ended up being made was a fairly toothless PG-13 that's about 25 minutes too long and doesn't even have the gumption to let the shark do anything besides swallow a few people whole. Anyway, to sum up, The Meg is not very good. Thumbs down. Definitely skip it. Do a Jaws Crank double feature instead if you feel like you need that particular itch scratched. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by hitting that like button, subscribing if you're new, and leaving a comment down below letting me know what you thought of The Meg if you saw it. Or, you know, what you thought of the trailers if you didn't. There are some other videos up here on the screen you can check out if you would like. Thanks very much once again for watching, and take care. Shadow Raiders next week, I promise.